Yo, what's going on YouTube? This is Zach with IT Career Questions. If you're new here, we help people who are looking to get into the IT field. And with that, today we have a special guest. He's the myth, the legend, he's the cyber mentor, Mr. Heath Adams. I want to welcome him onto the show with us because he's going to be helping us answer some questions about cybersecurity. So, welcome to the show, Mr. Heath Adams. How you doing?
Hey, thanks, Zach. I appreciate you having me. I'm doing pretty well. How are you?
Doing great, man. Doing great. I really appreciate you coming on and helping out the community.
Yeah,
That's a big thing, man. I really do appreciate that. I know the viewers will appreciate that as well. So I first want to start this off by getting your story, and I know your story because I've followed you for a while now. But it's a very interesting story, and I think it can definitely help people who are looking to transition within the IT field or security. That really it stands out. So if you don't mind, go ahead and tell us about you.
sure. I'll try to give you a brief rundown. So I started back in pretty much accounting. I was an accountant around 2012. I graduated college and went into a field that I thought was safe for me and just safe because everybody needed an accountant. And that decision for me was actually because I kind of grew up on the poor side. So I just wanted a job where I knew I could make good money. I could have a safe field, and I could be prosperous if I worked hard at it. Quickly into my accounting job career, I realized that I did not like anything about accounting whatsoever. Unfortunately, I didn't realize that in college. I was pretty good at it, but once I got into the field, I realized like you're working 60, 70 hours a week, and you're making pretty much, when you break it down, like minimum wage after the salary and everything else. So it was uh, it was a struggle trying to find what I wanted to do in my career. And for me, I had always been into computers and into IT. I think it just took a long time for me to realize that. And even going into college, it took me a while to realize that I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. I was doing criminal justice major and then computer science and finance, accounting. And there was no real guidance for me into my career and what I wanted to be. So it took a while for me to actually realize that um, accounting wasn't for me. And like the final stepping stone or breaking point or whatever was that around 2014, 2015, I took this job in accounting that was pretty much in the middle of nowhere. And I was living in Ohio, and I ended up moving to like this remote location in Indiana, and I was working in Illinois. Uh, and this it was like this 45-minute drive each way, which isn't terrible, but like I left all my friends behind. I left, family, acquaintances, etc., behind because I was chasing money. I was chasing this job that I wasn't even passionate about, and I ended up like going into work when it was dark outside. I ended up coming home when it was dark outside, and there was just no pure enjoyment in it. So I hit this breaking point where I ended up actually walking out of my job and just moving out west. And I wasn't sure what I was going to do. I thought maybe like I'll be an Uber driver, or I'll do something just to make some quick cash, hustle until I could find out what my next move is. But I knew for sure I did not want to be an accountant. And from there, I started looking at jobs and started thinking about what my passions were and what really motivated me in life. And really, it kept coming back to IT. I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. I just knew that I had been using a computer since I was 4 years old. I started out in Prodigy, moved to AOL. I was building AOL chatbots in Visual Basic. I was building websites with HTML when I was like 10. Like I knew a lot of these things, but it never clicked to me that that was like my passion. It should have a lot sooner. So I just started looking at what I needed to do and what jobs were out there. And I started applying to jobs and ended up actually landing a job in help desk. From there, it was just kind of figuring out what I wanted to be in the IT industry. I knew help desk was a good starting point. And I started just looking at jobs, and a coworker ended up telling me, he's like, you know, that there's people out there that get paid to do hacking. It's like, no, that's really cool. I thought it was just the bad guys on TV. I had no idea. So I started looking into what I needed to do to become an ethical hacker and started working towards certification. So over the course of 2 years, I knocked out probably, I don't know, 10 or 11 certifications: A plus, Net plus, Security plus, Linux plus. Um, rolling into like the OSCP for hacking, OSWP, CEH, and really just geared myself to become this ethical hacker, and ended up getting my first pen testing job or ethical hacking job within 2 years, or right around 2 years after starting the help desk. So yeah, my journey's been kind of crazy, and the twists and turns in between, even from starting help desk to being an infosec, has been it's been a crazy ride. But that's a brief summary on my half.
Yeah, man, you definitely put in work. That's for sure. I mean, that's a lot of certifications in a 2 year time. Which one do you think was the most difficult?
That's a good question. I honestly think, I mean, it's definitely the OSCP for me, because of not only the exam difficulties, but just the personal sacrifices I feel like I had to make. I would go to work, and then if I had downtime at work, I'd be studying. And if I came home, and I have a serious girlfriend at this time, I completely ignored her for like 2 months. And I told her before getting into it, like, hey, I'm going to be ignoring you. I want to get this done, but it takes a lot of time, and I'm spending probably 5 to 6 hours a day doing this certification. So just breathing, eating, living this certification. And so that was a personal sacrifice, and even a relationship sacrifice, temporarily, to get that done. And then of course you have the lab environment. It's just known to be challenging. The exam environment's known to be challenging. So definitely the amount of time studying and the commitment required for that was definitely the most difficult out of any of them.
Yeah, definitely. It's crazy, man. That's awesome though.
Yeah.
Now you brought up the help desk. Yeah, you said that you knew that was kind of like the best entry point to getting your foot, into the field, really. So, can you expand on that a little bit? Because I always tell people, like, start off at entry level. It's really going to open up doors for you. It's going to, show you a lot of the fundamentals of technology as a whole, and then you can kind of from there understand where your place kind of lies within IT. Was that your experience, or?
Yeah, absolutely. So I had worked some like really basic help desk in college, like in my master's program. And that was like installing a printer, or, like troubleshooting something really basic. I wasn't even allowed to touch Active Directory or anything along those lines. So I had some very general knowledge, but I quickly learned that I did not know nearly what I thought I did. I When I started help desk, I couldn't even tell you like what DNS was. I didn't have my A+ certification. I just got kind of really lucky with the job. And for me, if you want to be something in a career, like say you want to go into cybersecurity, you have to have these fundamentals or these building blocks to get there. And having that help desk job, that entry level job, is a perfect fit to kind of teach you all those fundamentals, all those building blocks. And the nice thing about help desk too, especially if you're working for like an MSP, you get to see all these different break fix scenarios where you would never encounter that anywhere else. So you get to see all this technology and all these ways things can be broken and ways to fix them. And it really helps you learn not only about the software, but the networks behind it, the infrastructure behind it, and everything along those lines. So you just build this nice foundation and you grow into this. And that really assists you when it comes time to actually looking into growing in your career, and moving into more complex or, higher level jobs.
Yeah, that's awesome. I couldn't have said that better myself, dude. Like that's like spot on. I feel like. What got you interested in security though? Like how did that start? I mean, being in the help desk, you don't get really introduced that often to security related, tasks or projects and things like that. So where did that interest come?
Yeah, so as soon as I heard about the ethical hacking type jobs, I went home that night and I started Googling it and just reading about other people's experience in the field, what you do, what you're asked to do, and what those requirements were. And I said, this sounds everything I've ever wanted to do in my entire life. So from there, it was just, like figuring out what I needed to do to get there. And I did have a supportive boss. Like, I worked for an MSP. I didn't work for an MSSP, so no security aspect or focus. And I was always the guy like bringing these ideas, like, "Hey, we should do this," or like for example, people would call in and they would have to provide absolutely no identification or credentials or whatsoever to prove who they were. And I'm like, "Do you understand how bad this could potentially be?" So just like things like that, I bring these ideas back, and I quickly realized too that it wasn't anywhere I was going to grow in a security role. So like I started looking at what certifications and how I needed to move up. And that's really where that interest was and how it grew and expanded.
That's awesome. That's awesome. What was the first certification you got then? Your A plus?
It was my A+, yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. And then now you've grown so much, man. You've just like blew
I
up. I just love seeing it. I love the story. I love hearing how you got to where you are today. Which
appreciate
is,
that.
what are you doing today besides being an amazing content creator? And I hate using the word influencer because I think that's a stupid word. But you know,
Yeah, no,
how'd you get here?
I definitely am an influencer, by the way. Like it's like I think if you take on this content creation role and you start getting as much subscribers as we do, you do have influence over people. People are going to listen to what you say, and like I do take pride in that and try to guide people in the right direction. But yeah, other than that, just honestly staying busy. Like I do have my own company now, so I do my own pen tests, have clients, and that's kind of been my struggle slash journey the last 8 or 9 months now, just working on that, doing content creation, doing social media, and Twitch streaming, YouTubing, etc. So I try to stay busy, go to conferences, give talks, learn the newest and greatest things in the field because the field's always changing too. So there's a lot of different hats that I feel that I'm wearing at any given time, and I wouldn't have it any other way.
That's awesome. I hear
Yeah.
you, man. Um, I know what this is probably a question that somebody's going to ask, but what is it that you kind of do on a day to day basis as far as like your pen testing job goes? That
Yeah.
as much detail as you could provide, or
Yeah, no, I can give you a background. So basically, it's work from home, and there are so many different types of assessments, and I'll kind of break it down. Like we wear a bunch of different hats. You have like a technical hat where you do your pen testing activities. You have a writer hat where you have to write reports and be well written, and you have this you have like a consultant hat where you have to go and be in front of a client, give a debrief, talk to people. And you also have like a politician hat where, especially if you're a business owner, like you have to deal with the fires. If somebody's freaking out, there's no barrier or manager in between that. You have to deal with that yourself. But like on the technical side of things, there's a bunch of different assessments that you end up doing, and I'll kind of try to break them down. So there's network assessments and there's external and internal type assessments. An external assessment would be like you or me just sitting at home trying to hack a company. So we could play like we're Russia, China, whoever, just the bad guy trying to break in. And a lot of that nowadays is like you're not going to find exploits where it's just like some sort of exploit that you run and it just gives you something back. You're more so looking for bad policies in place, like if they don't have multi-factor authentication on their logins, and you could take login forms and you can just spray credentials like winter 2020 right now would be a big one, and that would probably get you in a lot of places. So you pass those passwords around and you spray those passwords and you try to get into these locations and see if you can get in to the internal network from the outside. The opposite of that is the internal network. So that's where we would assume that we've breached the perimeter in some way or another. And now we're looking at it from an inside perspective. And on that perspective, 99.9% of the time, you're looking at Active Directory environments. So there's a lot of pen testing related to Active Directory and attacking Active Directory. And so those are just learned over time as well. But a lot of attacks revolving around like LMNR poisoning, Kerber roasting, SMB relay. It's a lot of SMB attacks, user attacks, etc. We have, of course, social engineering engagements, physical engagements as well, where it's like legal breaking and entering. So we'll do social engineering on site. We'll go out, we'll take a drone, do reconnaissance of a building. We might hang around a smoking area and try to like walk in with somebody or, chat them up. We might try to like shim a door. It's usually not as much lock picking as people would think. It's more like shimming a door, like something like a can of air that you can use to get past like infrared, badge cloning, etc. So a lot of that. And then if it's just a pure social engineering engagement, you might be talking like phishing engagements or vishing engagements, depending on who your target and what the value is there. We have wireless, so basically trying to hack, wireless networks, depending on the grade, if it's WPA2 personal or enterprise, etc. We have malware assessments, email campaigns, etc. there too. And then we have purple teaming engagements, which is where we'll sit down with a blue team or a defensive team, and I'll run an attack of some sort, and I'll say, "Hey, did you see it?" And they'll say, "Yeah, I saw it. No, I didn't see it." And then we kind of build these baselines in their SIM to allow them to detect these attacks. and then that just improves them. And it's more of a maturity thing. Typically, you'll have a pen test or a couple pen tests, and then you'll start moving into this. How do we detect some of these attacks that we are having, or could occur in our network? And then lastly is what's known as red teaming. So pen testing and red teaming are actually different, even though they're kind of always associated with each other. Red teaming is more of emulating an APT or an advanced persistent threat, somebody that's, like a country that has a big cyber threat. We'll just say like China, for example, and say that there's this company out there that's concerned that China might take some of their intellectual property, and they want to see how they could be attacked. And you would do a red team assessment where maybe you'll go and you'll actually live down there. You'll spend a month down there, and you'll just hang out where the employees hang out. You'll go to lunch. You'll maybe befriend one. You'll try to drop some USBs in a parking lot, or you'll do something along the lines that is very, very stealthy. So like red teaming is very quiet, where pen testing is like knocking at the front door. And red teaming, your goal is to just get into the network and get whatever it is you're after and get out. And that can be a very, very long, expensive engagement. And usually those are specialized teams that end up doing that. And so I think I covered pretty good majority of what we did.
Yeah, definitely. So here's the question: what's your favorite part of all of it? Like, what if you had to like single out like one area within what you're doing? What area would that be?
For me, I'm a network guy. Like I came from a network background. I love the internal network assessments. So I'll answer this in two ways. The most rewarding for me is the external assessment. If I get into your internal network from the outside, that's super rewarding because I like to think of networks as like a house. If you think about your front doors are got they've got some nice padlocks on them. You might have lighting. You might have dogs. You might have a lot of protections that will protect that front door from somebody breaking in. And that's what an external network is like. Usually, because it's externally facing, you've got patching going on, you got a lot of things going on, defense measures there. The internal network is like your bedroom door. It might not even have a lock on it. So like you're up against more of this bloodbath inside. But at the same time, the thinking process, if you have a mature client on an internal network, the process that you might have to take and the roundabout ways to go to actually get in and capture like a domain controller, for example, could be very exciting as well. So I like network assessments as a whole. I think internals are my favorite, with externals being the most rewarding on compromise.
Awesome, thank you, man.
Yeah.
So the next question I have for you is going to be one that's definitely going to help, I think, a lot of the people here on my channel, and that is, if you could give somebody advice that was looking to get into security, what advice would that be?
Yeah. So I would say pick a role that you're interested in, look at the job descriptions, look at everything about that role, and make sure that you're absolutely interested in it. Make sure, like, not because it sounds sexy, not because you think it pays well, but because you have that pure interest at heart. From there, you need to start looking at your foundations, and you need to understand too that like cybersecurity is a field where things change literally every day. So you have to be always willing to study. If you're the person that kind of goes home at night and is interested in cybersecurity and that's a passion, you're willing to read up on it and you're willing to do your due diligence and learn about the new exploits and the new defenses all the time, you might be one who would be a good fit for this field. And if that does check that box, if you're checking those boxes, then you need to start looking at the foundations for the specific career field. Like, for example, if you wanted to become an ethical hacker, you should be well versed in networking. You should know some scripting or programming languages like Python or even just like Bash. And you should be familiar with Linux because we are in Linux a good majority of the time. So like you have to understand what the foundationals are, build those foundations, just like we were talking about with the A plus certification, working help desk. You build that foundation, then you build upon it, and you can work your way into cybersecurity a lot easier once you have that understanding.
Awesome, awesome, thank you. So as somebody who just brand new, right? Like they just heard somebody say, "Oh, cybersecurity is a great career," right? Like, how does somebody get started? Like, where is like that starting point in just learning?
Yeah, there's a lot of resources out there. I mean, and again, it comes back to the foundations, right? Like, say if you're studying for for A plus, you might be looking at somebody like Professor Messers, who I used when I was coming up, or like a Mike Myers type deal. And I think a lot of it is like a lot of this job, a lot of this whole IT career for everybody is Googling. And like being good at Google is going to save you a lot of time. And that's, I don't know about you, but I get a lot of questions that I'm just like, you could have Googled this. Like,
Yeah.
this is a question that is like, if you're asking me this question, you're not doing your own due diligence to go Google and learn more about the field. So, like,
You're already
number one,
failing as an IT
yeah,
professional. You know, if you
exactly.
can't Google, like, it's your number one step.
Exactly. Number one thing is that nobody's going to hold your hand. Like I will gladly answer questions for you as long as those questions are like a mentorship type question or something like about experience but if it's a question that you could have gone to Google, we're just going to look at you and say, sorry, dude, or sorry, ma'am. Like, it doesn't, like, just go to Google and look it up. So like having that basic foundation, being able to do your own research and then starting to look into like just saying like, hey, I don't know anything about IT. Where's a good place to start? And then maybe you discover, okay, help desk might be the first job somebody typically gets in IT. Well, what do I need to work on help desk? Well, A plus. What's a good free resource for A plus? And you might uncover your YouTube channel. You might uncover Professor Messer. You might uncover a lot of people, and that's just all through research and Google. Looking at Reddit's a fantastic resource.
Yeah.
Looking through YouTube's fantastic resource. So just being able to research and do your own due diligence again is super important.
Yeah. Then did you? I mean, you just got started here. What now? Like 5, 6 years ago now, right? Or
Uh,
2013 was it, or before that?
no, so I started in December of 2015 was my
2015. Okay.
first help desk job.
So did you utilize like any home labs when you were first kind of starting out, or did that not develop until you really kind of piqued your interest in security more?
That was much later. My first home lab was like a Cisco lab when I was studying for the CCNA. And even then, I actually preferred, like, I understood why I needed to do it and get the hands on experience, but I even then preferred just emulating it with, like, with Packet Tracer, for
Sure.
example. So, like, I am not a big hardware guy, though I do advocate for you to have a home lab. Even setting something up in like VMware or VirtualBox or however you need to do it, and just understanding the connections, how they flow, what's going on. I think that's super important. But the majority of my lab building exercises have been since I've been in cybersecurity.
Awesome. And how important has that been, do you feel like, towards you learning and understanding more about securing, ideally, like that? What impact has that had?
Super important because like you're not going to be on site at a client or get the opportunity to just sit there and maybe you can run some exploits, but you're not going to also be able to just sit there and also defend it. So like in your home lab, you could say, how does this exploit work? Let me figure it out. Okay, I'm going to run this exploit. There it is. It's working. Now, how do I defend against this? Let me go and try to turn that off and see if I can fix this issue. Same thing if you're like interested in threat hunting or detection, you can go and start digging into the Windows events, looking at what events trigger when you run certain activities, and have the same kind of success. So you get the break fix aspect of it. You get to understand why exactly it's going on, and you get to troubleshoot a lot of issues that happen as well, because nothing runs out of the box perfectly the first time. So you just get to learn way more about your own network and about how Windows, specifically Windows environments, works for Active Directory. And it really does help a ton. It's made me a better teacher, a better pen tester, everything overall.
Awesome. I only have like probably a couple more questions here for you, um, and then we'll kind of go over to AMA, see what the everybody in the chat wants to ask. But as far as starting out today, are there any specific certifications you feel like are going to be very helpful in a path towards cybersecurity?
Yeah, so it depends what you want to do. I think like when we talk stepping stone jobs, a lot of people are using like a SOC analyst type role. And I think a security plus to kind of get your foot in the door there is good. And you could pivot on the SOC analyst type job, moving from like you can move into red teaming, you can move into blue teaming, you can move into threat hunting, even incident response. There's a lot of different ways you can go. So I would encourage people to look maybe towards the security plus type certification and go from there, and then start looking at, okay, what field do I want to go into? Look at those job descriptions and see specifically what certifications are there that they're asking for. Because obviously a red team certification is going to be significantly different from a blue team certification. and the type of roles that they want. So it's hard to say anything above that level, but I think that Security Plus is a good foundation. And it opens a lot of doors, especially in the US, if you're looking at like government 8570 type jobs, and just getting your foot in the door in a lot of locations. It's kind of a bare minimum requirement.
Awesome. I kind of lost my train of thought because there's a lot going
That's
on in the
okay.
chat here. So I guess overall, is there any other? Well, here, I guess first, this is what I was thinking because I get this question all the time, and it's people asking me, "How do I get in cybersecurity?" Right? Like always, that is literally the question. How do I get into cybersecurity? And my question always back to them is like, well, what do you want to do in cybersecurity? Like,
Yep.
right? Cybersecurity is such a broad term
Huge.
nowadays, and it's like so much is encompassed under that. Um, do you receive like that specific question?
All the time. And my response is always, well, what do you want to be when you grow up? Because that's just like you said, it's such a broad field. It's hard to really say without knowing exactly what they want to be.
So, for anybody out there that's going to ask, how do you get into cybersecurity? First, define what it is that you would like to do. So,
Yep.
I just want to make sure that we get that out of the way before people start asking that specific question. So, last question I guess I have before we get to the chat is there any other advice that you could give to um, these potential IT professionals who just want to get started in IT or security as a whole?
Yeah. So definitely stay hungry, stay motivated, keep keep working at it, and don't worry about like imposter syndrome. Don't worry about what others are doing. Just worry about what you're doing. Also, when it comes time to actually applying for jobs, never look at the job requirements too seriously. Like, don't let a job requirement discourage you. Always apply for that job regardless, because the worst thing that can happen is they're going to say no to you. The best thing that can happen is they call you in for an interview. So I always tell people to ignore that, and also ignore anybody that's like a gatekeeper or says like, hey, you need to pay your dues in this job position. You need to stay in help desk for 2 years before you can move on to the next role or the next block. You should be moving on when you feel that you're ready and that you've learned. And if there's no place for you to move forward or move up, it's probably time to move on. If you feel like you're the smartest person in the room, it's probably time to move on as well.
Awesome. Sorry, I was pulling something up here real quick. Um, so before we go over to the chat and see what people have to say, I'm plugging your course real quick because there's been a couple
Oh, thanks.
people in the chat who said that they've gone or they're going through it currently. I purchased this course like right when it first launched, probably a couple days after you first launched it. I'm maybe like only an hour and a half or so into it, but I've loved what I've seen so far. The feedback that you have received from this course, I think, has been outstanding. Like it, I mean, if I look, we're looking at it right now. I mean, you got high rating, got a lot of students involved there. I know you've probably heard a lot of great things about it, but I just want people out there to know. Here's Practical Ethical Hacking, the complete course. This is by Mr. Heath Adams here. There's a link in the description of this live stream for you guys to go and check it out. Is there anything that you want to kind of mention about this course?
Nothing in particular. Just like it is what I mean, I built this in mind with a niche in the market. Like all the courses that I've seen, even that I've come across, like the CEH and even some of the bigger name certifications, the courses on Udemy, a lot of them do not teach the practical skills and the actual skills that you're going to need when you get into the field of ethical hacking. So if you're looking to become an ethical hacker, or you're even looking to see as like a blue teamer or somebody that's just curious to see what attacks go on in a network, a real network environment, that is what this is geared towards. That's what it's designed for. And other than that, I mean, I really hope that if you do buy the course, you enjoy it.
Awesome. Cool. Thanks, man.
Yeah,
So
thank you.
I'm going to kick it over to the chat here and see what questions come up. But I didn't realize you have a Discord, so I got to find the link to that real quick too, so people can join that. Is it open Discord?
It is an open Discord. I can shoot you a link real quick,
All right.
and that might be a little easier.
I already got it.
Oh, you got it? You're
Yeah.
fast. Look at you.
There we go. There's a link to the Discord. So Triven Kumar says, "Hi Heath and Zach. I have close to 10 years experience in incident management. Wanted to move to pen test. How practical is my wish?"
So I believe that anybody can move to pen test if like you have the interest. And pen test right now is like a field that it doesn't matter if you are 40 years old, 50 years old. It really what matters is we need people that actually care, the people that are again willing to put in that time, that study, etc. So if you're willing to move, I've seen people move from all different crazy kinds of fields. And if you meet a lot of pen testers, they're going to tell you they come from all various sorts of backgrounds. Most of them aren't really from IT to begin with. So I think that, yeah, it's absolutely possible. Again, you just have to put in that work and you'll absolutely make it there if you do.
Yeah, that's awesome. I always refer back to this story that I heard when I was at InfoSec World a couple years ago. That there was a fisherman, like out in the Netherlands or something, and he had some kind of sonar system, right, to view the fish underwater, and he found some. He was playing around with the software and the actual hardware, and he found some kind of exploit in it, and he got intrigued by it. He started learning more about this, so he went from being like literally like this commercial fisherman to a pen tester because of this. And it was always just like such a this crazy story for me to hear that it's like you could start off from anywhere, and as long as you kind of begin to understand and put in that work, like you can do it. Like you could do this. Like you can become a pen tester no matter what your background is, no matter what you previously done in your life.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a wicked cool story. I've never heard that before, but
Yeah,
that's the kind of people that you see all over the field. It's these weird backgrounds, and yeah, anybody, literally anybody, can become a pen tester.
yeah. Just put in the work, guys.
Yep.
What are your views on Python?
So my views are that it's important to learn at least a language. And what I tell people is like I'm not a developer by any means. I'm what I call a Google developer. So if I want to put something together, I will Google all the little bits of logic that I think need to exist and kind of slap it together. I do think back to what I was saying earlier about the foundations. Understanding a scripting slash coding language is good, even if it's the basics. Like do you know what a variable is? Do you know what looping is? Do you know what like conditions are, right? And if you can understand just the basics of these programming languages, it'll help a lot. Now, Python is one of the easiest languages for people trying to get into coding and development to actually learn. I think it's super useful to have as a tool set, regardless of what field you're going into. But for a lot of the fields, you don't have to be a full-on coder, and that doesn't have to be your goal. I would say start with the goal of just understanding it, maybe building out a few scripts, automate some basic things, and I think it's a really useful language.
Yeah, no, definitely. I can definitely agree with that. I think just learning any scripting language in general is, and you don't have to be an expert in it. I feel like,
No.
it's just understand some of the fundamentals of it, because as you even just learn and understand one of them, when you get introduced to new ones, you can look at it and you can kind of understand what's going on. Now, you're not going to be an expert in it, right? But you will have an understanding of at least what this script is trying to do. And I think that's really important.
Yep, absolutely, I agree.
Uh, thank you for the $2 super chat, Allie. She says, Zach, very important. Tell Heath I said hi.
Hi,
So,
Ali.
yep, there you go. Hi from Allie. What do you think about cybersecurity boot camps?
It's tough. It's a lot of money, and I feel like there's not a lot of guarantee. A lot of them throw a guarantee out there, but if you're looking into something like that, my suggestion would be to find other students who have graduated. Go look on LinkedIn, go look other places, do your research again, and try to talk to these people and ask them if they would go back, would they do this over again? Because it's such an expensive thing to do. And when you're doing boot camps, you're just force feeding information. It's hard to retain a lot of information, I feel like, in such a short period of time as well. So I think it comes back to doing your due diligence, doing your research, and making sure that you're understanding what the program offers, what the job placement rates actually are, and not some statistic that they're maybe altering or using in their benefit to sway you to purchase.
For sure. I could definitely agree with that. I'm not a big fan of boot camps. I think it's way too much information drilling you in the face for like a week, and then
Yep.
if you're not doing like your due diligence, like you say, then you're gonna forget pretty much everything that you just learned. It's such a just like an information cram. I can't get on board with that, I guess.
Yeah. It's it's hard to recommend to anybody, and I usually tell people no, but some people are dead set on it, and it's just again you got to do your research.
So what about college now? I guess that I'm not. I'm asking this question. Nobody's asked it yet, but so you have a degree within accounting, then, right?
Yep.
So that's
Yeah.
probably actually helped you out in so many ways that you don't even realize, right? Because it's a degree and it marks that checkbox. Um,
Yeah.
but what do you feel about that?
So college, it's a tricky discussion. I do have undergrad and I've got a master's, and that's helped me a lot on the business side, owning a business. Um, but at the same time, like I feel like there's a lot of degrees being pushed out there, especially like cybersecurity degrees that are really policy based, or they're just not updated to the way they should be because cybersecurity changes daily. And you have these programs where they're probably not updating their curriculum, but every couple of years. And if you're updating every couple of years, you're already outdated. So it's
Yeah,
really hard to advocate for cybersecurity programs. There are some that are out there that are actually legitimate, but I'm so removed from the game. You know, I think that you're better off with computer science degree if you're going to get a degree more so than risking it on a cybersecurity program. My advice is this: like, if you are wanting to go to college, then go to college if it interests you. If you're trying to get into cybersecurity, more and more so nowadays, you don't have to go to college. The thing is that you will be limiting yourself on some positions. There are absolutely jobs out there that will not even look at you if you don't have college degree. And there are jobs out there that literally, like you said, just want a checkbox. So like it doesn't matter. You could have went to some random school in the middle of nowhere, but as long as you're resume says bachelor's on it, then they're happy.
yeah,
Um, so like a lot of these places don't really care where your degree is from, it's just as long as you have it. But that if that is the goal for you, the thing you have to look at is how expensive is college going to be, and what is your return on investment? Like, are you spending $100,000 on that degree? And is that degree going to pay back itself plus more? Are you spending $10,000 on your degree? Then maybe it's worth it. Is the time invested, the 4 years, is that 4 years that you lose? Could you have used that to be in the field, earning salary at a time, earning experience, and already come out at a higher salary with more dividends? So there's a lot of questions that you need to weigh. You need to look at the pros and cons and really think about it. Again, in summary, you can be closed out of a lot of jobs for not having it, but college is super, super expensive in the States at least. So it's really dependent on your situation and a lot of other factors.
for sure, for sure. I got to give a shout out to Macarary. I'm terrible with names. I'm sorry. But she just says, thank you for all your help. If you have a question, please put it in the chat, and we'll definitely get your question as soon as we can here. And then another super chat from Ryan Kasoon. They said they were offered a full ride from WGU. Do you think majoring in networking with a CCNA would be a needed foundation, or major in cybersec with ISCT two certs? I can't even talk. I'm getting a phone call at the same time trying to talk.
It's
Sorry.
okay. Yeah, so the WGU is one of those platforms where you can knock out a degree relatively quick. It's like more of your own pace. So it's not like that brick and mortar. You have to do your 4 years. You have to get it over with. So like if you got a full ride, you can get all these certifications for free, and you can check that box. I think it's a pretty good deal. At the same time, yes, I think the CCNA, coming from somebody who has a CCNA, I think that it is useful to have. Because like at least as a pen tester, I encounter Cisco stuff all the time. And if I break into a Cisco box or equipment or router, whatever, I know how to navigate around that command line once I'm in there. My only advice is, unless you're interested in Cisco equipment in particular, I would stop it at the CCNA. And if you're only, unless you're interested in like specifically doing networking related stuff, I would also probably stop it at the CCNA, because I know people in the field that have CCNP or even CCIE, and they come in and yeah, you're a pen tester, but then somebody's gonna be like, that guy's got a CCNP, that guy's got a CCIE. Let's bring him in for this network job over here. Let's bring him in for something else. And you never really get away from that. I feel like in a lot of jobs, you never really get away from that title once you earn it. So I would be very cautious about moving past that, but I do think a CCNA is a good foundational certification for anybody willing to get into or wanting to get into cybersecurity.
Awesome. I've heard that many times. Many times. So it's good to. It's always good to kind of hear it again because it
Yeah.
really kind of drills it home so people understand. So I'm going through the chat looking, seeing what we got. Eduardo, what do you think of Team Treehouse to learn coding? Because that's what I'm going to use to learn Python.
Yeah, so a long time ago, I used them for Python, and I thought it was really good. Actually, I used them for Python and JavaScript. I think it was like $25 a month. It was fairly reasonable, and the videos were high quality. The content was great, and they had a lot of hands-on tutorials as well. So I thought Team Treehouse was fantastic.
Awesome. Do you have a preference as far as I know this is like a very touchy question, but CEH or OSCP?
Yeah. So as somebody who has both, don't do the CH. Please don't do the CH. The only exceptions to this is if the CH is a job requirement in your country specifically, maybe it's worth considering, but you will not. There's no way you will become a pen tester or anything close to a pen tester by completing that certification. You will barely learn anything. It is very much a like learn all these weird switches and commands and stuff that you'll likely never see or use again. And then it just turns into like a brain dump when it comes exam time on that. So the only thing here is for like the US, again, touching back on that DoD, that 8570 requirement, the CEH is there. And if you want to work in DoD, having the CEH, Department of Defense, if you want to work in the government, that will help you significantly with landing a role, or is a requirement for the 8570. So otherwise, I would say the OSCP has the biggest ROI. It's on nearly 99% of ethical hacking certification or ethical hacking job requirements. And it's actually around the same price, if not cheaper. I think I paid like 1,200 for my OSCP and 2,000 for my CH. So the OSCP was like $1,200, and then my first job was over $100,000. So the ROI there is very significant for the time you invest.
Awesome. Do you have any thoughts on the Pen Test Plus? Have you seen anything on that?
Yeah, actually, I took the Pen Test Plus in beta because I thought it was a good way to actually just up all my certifications and see about the exam. And I will say that I was already working in the field, already had my OSCP, and that exam was pretty tough. Um, so I do give it kudos there. The issue with it is I'm not seeing it anywhere right now on any sort of job requirements, and there's still no practical exam. Like the OSCP has that practical exam to it where you have to actually do something to prove you have knowledge. This is more of just a multiple choice. There's some scenarios, typical CompTIA. But like I think the exam was good, the questions were good, but at the same time, I don't think it's going to improve to an employer or make you a pen tester again at the same. So
Right. How do you feel about overall? Because you have quite a few CompTIA certs. How do you feel about their questions and stuff that they ask on those exams?
sometimes it doesn't feel like they put a lot of effort into their questions, and you see typos and you see weird
Yeah.
stuff, and they're questionable. Yeah, I mean their exams are all right, I guess. I don't regret taking them, and I think that they helped me get my foot in the door in a lot of places. But yeah, the exams are they're
They're
interesting.
different, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, they're
I know
different.
going through my Security Plus, there's like so many questions I'd have to read at least like 4 or 5 times, like just
Yeah,
so I could
absolutely.
actually understand what the hell they're asking me. I'm like, what? Wait, hang on.
Absolutely.
I'm gonna read this a few times. It's ridiculous. Marquan Lee, thank you for the super chat. They say I want to switch to the IT department at my job. Should get my Security Plus to get a head start, or just apply for jobs without it? I mean,
If it's at your job, I would go try to talk or network with somebody over there, see what they want and what the requirements are, and then start basing that off of it. It's weird when it's at your job. There's a lot of politics too, so make sure like you're talking to somebody that you trust and somebody that's not going to like go to your manager and be like, hey, so and so wants to leave and move to this other department as well. So I would say one, be careful. Two, network. Make sure you understand what the job is actually doing over there as well, what the requirements are, and then study based on that.
awesome. That I can agree with that for sure. Uh, Ian Hart, sorry, is someone looking at incident response and threat intelligence after CISA Plus? Where should I be looking?
I don't. So I will say I don't know a ton about incident response. The only things that I know is that you have to be okay with a lot of travel. There's a lot of travel, and there's a lot of short notice travel because you're responding to incidents. In terms of certifications, I don't know of a ton out there that are for it because I'm not really in the field. My recommendation would be looking at some of the jobs. There are some teams out there that have it. There's a lot of the big hacker organizations like Rapid7 has incident response team. So I would start looking at maybe some of the hacker organizations that are known out there and look at their incident response requirements and what kind of certifications or what they're after for those roles.
Yeah, I think EC Council has some a certification or two geared towards. I don't know if it's it might be incident response. I don't know. They have quite a few different certifications, but it sounds like a majority of the security community is not a big fan of EC Council.
Yeah, I don't recommend them to anybody, unfortunately.
Yeah,
So
no, that's fine. I respect it. They don't pay my bills, so.
yeah.
um, do you do any bug bounties? Have you ever participated in a bug bounty? Or is that's a little outside
Yeah.
of your realm, or?
No, it's and I can't believe I didn't touch on this. So web application pen testing is the other thing that we do as pen testers. And that's really what it is. It's all mostly web based. I mean, bug bounties can be software, they can be even car hacking, other things, but a lot of the big majority of it's web based. And the methodology of doing a web application pen test versus bug bounty hunting is very similar. It's just what you're after that's different. So the pen tester might write you up for every little nitpicky detail, where the bug bounty hunter can only submit based on impact. So if you're missing like a header in your response, your HTTP response is missing some sort of header, I'm going to write you up for that, but that's not going to have any impact on the website in reality unless it could be chained to something that gains some sort of exploit. So I have done some bug bounty hunting. I'm on a few different programs, a lot of private programs. It is not my primary source of income, only because the ROI that I get from working on clients or doing my own thing is a lot larger. And I'd have to spend, I don't know what the equivalent amount of time is, but I'm not as skilled as some of the people that you see that's out there. And that's another thing to point out too, is like, you see a lot of people posting these $20,000, $30,000 bugs. Those are probably the 1% of the 1%. Most of the bugs are like $100, $200. So if you're in the US and you're not like a college student and you're trying to do this full time, it's going to be an uphill battle. Not saying you can't do it. It's just a lot of time invested to get to that point. If you're in other countries where the cost of living is low, obviously it could be more lucrative for you to learn this and do this as something you can work from home or even doing in college. So me personally, I don't do a ton of it. I do play around just to keep my skills fresh and look at different websites when I have the time. But yeah, I do encourage people to at least give it a try. And it's a good way to learn web application pen testing, even if you're not looking to pursue bug bounties full time.
Awesome. Outside of YouTube, what's your favorite like resources to use to stay up to date?
Yeah, communities. Honestly, communities in Twitter. So if I check Twitter and there's a like if there's a big bug out, the first place is going to be is all over Twitter. So like that's a good place to get your up to date news, and being in part of communities like a Discord community or a Slack or whatever those are. They will be posting, talking about all the chatter, anything in the news. Somebody's going to see it. Somebody's going to post it. There's other websites out there too, like Ars Technica or even Reddit will have these things if you subscribe to the right subreddits. So there's a lot of ways to get your news and stay current and up to date outside of YouTube.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm a big fan of Reddit. I find a lot of useful information there, and of course Twitter. Twitter's just like an
Yeah.
endless amount of information. I feel like there's so
Well,
many different people you could follow there.
yeah, absolutely. And chances are with Reddit, like if you have a question of any sort and you just type your question in with Reddit, somebody has asked that question and somebody else is giving advice on that. So I go to Reddit almost as a main source if I
Yeah.
can't find it right away on Google. So
Yeah, a lot of times, like when I was actually working in the field, like Reddit was usually probably like my number two resource. Or when I was doing a Google search, at the end of it, I would have Reddit
yep,
because then I know for sure I'd get an answer. And I think
exactly.
like 99% of the time, the answer probably was on Reddit. Thankfully,
Yep.
so yeah, it's like an invaluable resource right there. Ian Hartz wants you to say something about VetSec.
Ah, yes, the wonderful shirt. So VetSec is a community that we started 2018, so it's almost been 2 years, and now it's a nonprofit organization. It's got a board, it's got everything, and they're doing a lot of great things over there. It is for military members, current, former, doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what country you're a part of. If you were in the military at any point in time and you're looking to get into cybersecurity, you already work in cybersecurity, that is veteransec.com. There is a Slack channel that you can join. And last time I checked, it was over 1,000 members there. And there's just a lot of great success stories of people helping each other find jobs, work on resumes, and just having somebody to talk to, especially if you're former military, that, sometimes like you just have something going on, you need a buddy to talk to and feel like somebody that could maybe understand you a little bit better. So it's a great resource for anybody that has had that experience and is looking to network with others that have similar backgrounds.
Awesome. Thank you for your service, by the way.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it.
So we're closing in on an hour here. If anybody has any other questions, make sure you guys tag me or at me, at IT Career Questions, so I see it, or send a super chat or something so we see it, because otherwise with the chat, it just all gets jumbled into one another. I can't keep track. That's always the problem with live streams. It's so hard to keep up sometimes with people.
Yeah, the more popular you get, you got 170 people watching. It's insane. Anything over 100 is almost impossible to manage because the questions flow through way faster than you can.
Man, when I got like 50 people watching me, it's hard to keep up.
Yeah, it is.
I can't keep up with y'all.
Yeah.
Shreya, I'm not going to try to pronounce that, but they're an MCA graduate. How can I start with CyberSec? And how is the job requirement for freshers starting with CyberSec career? Well, kind of went over that earlier.
That's the back to the Google, honestly. So a lot of that, rewatch this and look at what you want to be when you grow up in Google and start there.
Yeah, if you guys want to start in cybersecurity, first figure out in what area of cybersecurity you want to work in. There's what threat intelligence, there's assurance, there's gosh, what did I say? Incident response. There's pen testing. I feel like the list could go on, and I could probably sit here for another hour trying to name everything that happens.
I'm not sure I could name every field in cybersecurity.
Yeah, that'd be impossible. Which certifications would you recommend for developing in the information assurance side? I would like to be an ISSO, CAP versus CASP versus CISSP versus CISM. There are so many. Yeah, there are a lot.
That's a good question. I don't know a ton about the information assurance side. I can tell you that out of any of those, the CISSP, especially if you're looking into management, is probably the way to go. It's just the premier certification for such a long time that's always on the top of the list. You see it on almost every job application. So like that couldn't hurt to have. But in terms of like very specific related information assurance, I don't know in particular. I haven't worked in that field.
No problem. What is the primary requirement of cybersecurity? I can answer this one. Always be learning.
Yeah, I like that. I'll agree.
Awesome. What do you feel about learning Linux? Yeah, I don't think you even touched. You said you have your Linux Plus, but
yeah.
As far as like being a requirement, how often are you running across Linux boxes during your pen testing and things like that?
So in terms of pen testing, not a ton. I would say it's majority is going to be running Windows, but at the same time, we run in Linux. Like you have Kali Linux, you have Parrot, you have all different types of variations or distributions of Linux that you're using. And some people are moved to Windows, and I do some pen testing out of Windows, but the majority of what I do is just easy run right out of Linux. So if you want to be a pen tester specifically, Linux is great knowledge to have. If you want to like broaden your horizons and work in cybersecurity, Linux is great knowledge to have. Like you don't have to necessarily go out and get Linux Plus certified, but maybe watch a YouTube series on Linux or do some sort of training that's out there. They have all kinds of resources on Linux. It's such a popular platform.
Yeah, for sure. I went through my LPI Linux Essentials or something a couple years ago, and that was like the first time I had ever gotten introduced to Linux, because I've been working in IT since like 2000, 2001. Never ran across Linux ever.
Yeah.
So I was like, in the last few years, like I've seen how important it is. I'm like, all right, I'm going to learn about it. I'm going to figure it out. I'm glad that I did, because Linux is everywhere.
We had a MSP client, and we had nobody. Okay, so the boss calls us, and he's just like, yeah, we just hired this new client, and they're a completely Linux organization, and we're just like, nobody here knows Linux. And he's like, yeah, exactly. So get on it. And it was like It's just Red Hat organization, and I learned the most there just trying to troubleshoot and literally just BSing my way. I remember being in there, and this guy was like, "How do you install something? Is it Yum?" And I'm like, "Yeah, that's totally it." Like, I had no way of knowing, but I figured out eventually, just thrown into the situation.
That's awesome. We have a question here from Allie. She says, "How about keeping up with motivation? InfoSec can be rough."
Yeah. So I think it's important not to get burned out. Like, you need to take time for yourself, whether you have a significant other, partner, or whatever. You like to watch TV, then go watch some TV. You want to watch Netflix, go binge on Netflix. Every day does not have to be a study day. Even if you're like in the middle of something and you're ripping your hair out, go take a walk, go play a video game, whatever distresses you. It's important to keep those in your life. If you are just sitting there constantly going 24/7 and you're not taking this time for yourself, you're going to get burnt out quick and you're going to lose your motivation. So definitely, like, keep the big picture in mind, keep where you want to be, and keep thinking about that, but also don't let yourself get overwhelmed in the process.
For sure, it's important to disconnect from time to time. I feel like it is. There's no way I could possibly do everything that I do and not disconnect every once in a while and say, all right, I'm not going to touch my phone. I'm not going to go on the internets. Like, just
Yep,
cut it out.
that's hard to do.
It is hard to do. Especially when this is like what you do. It's very hard to
Yeah,
do, but you need it.
absolutely.
You need like that, just like that quick. It's just like doing a quick reboot. You know.
Yep.
Thank you, Devin, for the super chat. They say, I'm currently in IT tech, plan on finishing my Network Plus and Security Plus this year, but wanted to know what I should do afterwards to become a pen tester.
Yeah, so it sounds like you would have a baseline in networking, baseline security. I would start looking at Linux. I'd look at Linux, look at learning Bash, or look at learning Python. Excuse me. And then once you have that Linux foundation, that scripting foundation, then start looking into a certification. Maybe you could do, like, do Hack the Box, play around there, download Kali Linux, and start looking at the methodology of actually attacking machines and how to actually do that, and then maybe go in and do something like the OSCP to get a foundational certification in the field.
Solid. I'm on board with that. I can agree. Cool. I don't know. There's not too much there. So I appreciate you coming on, man. I really do. I think we got a lot of useful information from this. A lot of people had their questions answered. We were on top of it. So thank you, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I know we've talked about this for such a long time and finally got to make it happen. So really excited to be here. I was looking forward to it, and
Yeah, man, me
I
too.
appreciate it a ton being here. So
For sure. If you guys haven't checked out the Cyber Mentor yet, I know I have links in the description below. Make sure you guys check out his course because it is solid. A lot of people love that course, man. I'm
thank
I'm
you,
very happy for you. I'm glad to see
thank you.
that
I
you're
appreciate
doing big
that.
things, man. It's awesome. So maybe we could do this again. Maybe we can figure out like a more specific topic and dive into it if you're ever interested or
Yeah, I'm
want to
I'm
come
always
on.
happy to come back. So
Awesome, man. I appreciate that. So is there anything else you want to add before we shut her down?
no, just honestly, like, if you're looking to get into this field, the cybersecurity, just again, stay motivated, stay hungry, and just keep studying. Don't lose focus. Don't worry about other people. Don't get imposter syndrome. That's easier said than done. But just worry about yourself and nobody else, and you'll get to your finish line when you get there. Just keep motivated, and good things will happen for you. Just work hard.
Yeah, I want to expand on that because these people are following us, right? They're following these people. We've done great things in our lives, and we're trying to help other people. And it's really hard to kind of separate yourself from what you're watching. It's really hard to kind of separate the two. Like, you guys have to focus on yourself. Don't pay attention to what we're doing and what
Right.
other people on social media are doing. It doesn't matter what they're doing. It matters what you're doing. And just because somebody goes out and takes their OSCP in 3 months doesn't mean that you can do that too. Not everybody's the same. So take the time, figure it out on your own, and you guys can do it.
Absolutely. And not enough people post their failures. Everybody always posts the successes, and everybody always retweets the big successes. So it gets lost in the mix that people fail way more than they succeed. So, like, you don't have to be worried about that at all. Just, again, yeah, focus on yourself, and you'll get there in your own time.
Yeah, I failed my Security Plus the first time I took it. I posted about it right away. and
Yeah.
that was the best thing for me. I'm so glad that I failed it the first time because I don't think I don't think I would have gone out and done it again without
Yeah.
that. Like it was just such a huge like it was a big deal, man. So yeah, everybody out there fails. It's all right, guys.
Yep.
But anyway, thank you, sir, for being on. I really do appreciate it. Everybody out there, always be learning and have a great day. Make sure you check out the Cyber Mentor Twitter, Discord. You're on LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitch. Links in the description. Have a great day, everybody.
Thanks.